So I'm here with Quinn. Quinn was a student in the fall of 2019, 2009. So can you tell us about your experience in last fall, Quinn?
Sure. So I really enjoyed Compute 229. I thought it was really interesting. It's really the first class where you actually learn what's going on, like with the computer, like how anything really works. I think the things that were most interesting for me and that like I really think are really valuable are it really teaches you about like how memory is laid out. That's something that you don't really think about. You don't really think about like how memory is anything. You just play with your variables, and that's really all you need. But in Compute 229, you realize that there's so much more going on. There's registers, there's the memory hierarchy. There's a lot of stuff that you just don't see.
Okay, did you feel any contrast between the experience in 229 and some other of your second year courses?
Sure. I think that I guess the contrast would be the thing about the 200 level classes. I think at the University of Alberta, I think they all are like really focused in their own thing. Like you have the databases course, the algorithms course. I guess there's a bit of overlap between 201 and 229, in that they're both lower level classes. But 229 is it's a little more, I guess, time consuming to if you really want to perform well. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a you want to be doing these labs as early as possible because when you have like 3 weeks or a month to complete a lab, you really want to get started early. So I think the time commitment is one thing. I think it's also just like you can really, there's so much to explore in the class. Yeah.
So, you already mentioned some of the things that you learned that you found interesting. For example, a variable is not just a variable. A variable is a location in memory, and we need to keep track of where it is and how to get it, etc. Right? So part of the learning in 229. Can you make any comments about perhaps ways in which you find the content of 229 useful for other courses, or maybe some things that you not even have taken yet, but you anticipate that you'll be using what you have learned in 229?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I think just understanding how the computer works, I'm sure that is useful, like for a lot of classes. Just knowing like whenever you run into a bug, maybe some knowledge that you have in 229 can like help you think about how to fix it. But also, I think some things that are interesting, you learn about like how recursion actually works. I think that recursion is used a lot. And so learning how it actually works in 229, that's going to help you implement it efficiently and correctly in other lab or other courses, assignments. Yeah, so that's one thing.
So one thing that sometimes I hear students say is like, why should I learn assembly programming if likely I'm never going to be programming assembly? What would be your answer to that?
Sure. So that's interesting. I think that just learning assembly, I think, is fun. So maybe I'm a little biased, but I really enjoyed just like how simple it is, how every instruction does the one thing that you say it's going to do. So you can't really misunderstand like how that one instruction works. And so I thought that was interesting how like simple it is in terms of like the bare bones of all the instructions. But I think also just when you're working with these simple instructions, I think it can also kind of help with some algorithm knowledge. Maybe, I'm not sure if you agree, Nelson, but
I do.
well, yeah, when you're working with these like small things, doing these small steps, that's what like algorithms are based off of, right? And so I think it can really help with understanding how to write programs that aren't even assembly.
Yeah. So this brings to mind something. Early this month, friend Alan, who was a Turing Award winner, the first woman to win a Turing Award, actually, which is the Nobel Prize for Computing Science, and also the first person in compilers to win that. She passed early this month, and the New York Times obituary for her, the title was Fran Allen, the person who helped hardware understand software. And when I think about assembly, learning assembly, that title in that obituary brings to mind that one of the reasons that one wants to know assembly is to understand how the hardware can understand the software. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good reason. So, do you have any short advice for people that are coming to 229 with little, 229 is for keeners that really wanted to know how the computer works and they have been kind of fiddling with computers for a long time in their lives. It's easy to get into 229. So let's consider someone that's coming to 229 with little background on how computers work, with perhaps just a Python under their belt. Do you have any advice for them?
Sure. Yeah. So saying, like I said earlier, you want to get started on the labs early. That's for sure one thing. Another thing is you really want to get early in the course. You want to get accustomed to debugging. That's something that if you are good at debugging, especially with like the RARS simulator, writing labs and assignments later in the course, it will just be so much easier. It just makes your life a lot easier. Another thing, I'm not sure how we're doing the exams for this term, but the question bank that you have, Nelson, is really useful. I think that you want to do as many of the questions in the question bank that you can so that you really understand the course material.
So both are very solid advice. And I must mention here that hopefully debugging will be slightly easier this time because Quinn recorded some videos with the initial steps on learning how to debug. And as for exams, I think we're going to do more continuous assessments. So there will be, instead of a single midterm, there will be many different assessments. But they will definitely be based on the bank of questions and the homework questions. So that those are two very good advices. So thank you very much, Quinn. Let me just find out how to stop the recording here in